That day was supposed to be a normal day. The morning ceremony at the military base was carried out as usual. The sound of trumpets parted the air. The galloping feet of the soldiers sounded uniform and disciplined, and the field commander stood on the podium with a cold, emotionless face. But for some reason that morning there was a strange anxiety. Several senior officers seemed to be whispering, and there was a tense aura that even the young soldiers felt. No one knew for sure what would happen until the name was mentioned in a respectful tone. Private John Jungkook, come forward. His footsteps sounded steady, although if you look closely, there was a slight tremor at the tips of his fingers. Not out of fear, but as Jungkook knew that day, he did not stand alone as part of the South Korean military, but as a symbol of millions of hope, as a silent message to the world that an idol who was born from the world of glamour is now completely stripped of everything to prove one thing. He is not only able to survive, it is able to conquer. Even in the harshest places. In the past week, Jungkook broke 3 records at once. The fastest time to complete an extreme obstacle course, the best fitness test result of the entire new batch, and the highest shooting score in the annual military exam. To make matters even crazier, this is the first time in history that a celebrity, let alone a global K-pop idol, has surpassed even the records of regular soldiers who have undergone years of rigorous training. But that's not the end of the story. After his name was called and 3 certificates of record were handed out in the presence of the entire battalion, the known harsh and cold major commander fell silent. He looked at Jungkook deeply, then unexpectedly wiped away the tears at the end of his eyes. I have trained thousands of soldiers, he said in a voice that began to grow hoarse, but I have never seen such zeal. Not a passion to win, but a passion to remind the world of genuine love. A murmur began to be heard from the ranks of the soldiers. Some looked at each other, not understanding what the commander meant. And that's where everything gets even more emotional, even almost absurd. Jungkook was then asked to step onto the podium. With a trembling voice, he opened his helmet, showing a tired and dirty face, yet full of constancy. And as he spoke, the whole field suddenly fell silent. I'm not doing this to prove anything, he said. I do this for those who have always believed in me, even when I myself have lost my way. To the people who never stop sending letters, prayers, and love, even when I can only reply in silence. He paused for a moment, and his voice broke at the mention, I'm doing this for the army. At that moment, dozens of young soldiers in the back row who were secretly BTS fans lowered their heads to hold back tears. Even some of the senior staff who had sneered at Jungkook's presence as a military PR gimmick fell silent, caught up in emotions they themselves did not understand. Then came an even bigger surprise. The records that Jungkook set were not reported by him himself. He didn't even want to be published. The data was discovered by a coach when matching test results and suspecting that there was an anomaly in the highest score. After searching, it turned out that all the results belonged to one person, and that was Jungkook. All this time he practiced secretly while his friends slept. He ran an additional 10 kilometers each night, modifying his training load without telling his coach. He even practiced shooting techniques with visualization methods because field practice time was limited, and all this he did for one thing, to prove that the love of the army was never in vain. Many of you think I disappeared, but the truth is that I am preparing a gift that only I can do in this place, Jungkook said in a brief speech. The prize is not a trophy, not a song, not a fancam video, but a message that even in the harshest, coldest, and loneliest of places, Army's love remains the only flame that keeps it afloat. What happened after that speech is history. The unit commander ordered all those present to stand up and pay military respects to Jungkook. This was the first time that an active soldier was given such a special honor, not because of rank, not because of position, but because of the moral and emotional influence that he created in a military unit. And when this news finally leaked to the media that evening, armies around the world were at a loss for words. Trending hashtags on various platforms immediately exploded. Hashtag Jungkook Palawan Kami. Hashtag Maliter Menanges Karina Jungkook. Hashtag Our Pride JK. To the most touching. Hashtag Even in uniform he still shines. The video of Jungkook's speech was leaked and spread within 12 hours around the world, watched by millions of people, including soldiers in other countries, and an old man who has always rejected the K-pop industry. A retired Korean War veteran who wrote only one sentence in the comments. I was wrong about him. But behind all that excitement, there are clues that many people don't realize in his speeches. Jungkook mentioned the word gift more than once. But it's not just the record he's talking about. The observant army realized that as he said, I prepared a gift that only I can do in this place. His eyes changed, as if he were hiding something bigger. And when one of the cameras caught his watch that had appeared in an instant, Army on Twitter immediately excited. That watch is no ordinary military watch. It was a custom model produced by only one Swiss company, with one specific engraving on the inside, coordinates, and those coordinates point to one location, Busan. What does that mean? That's the next mystery, because since then, rumors have appeared that in addition to breaking military records, Jungkook is preparing a big secret project related to his homeland, something not related to music, but development. Some say he is preparing the construction of a hybrid military-civilian campus. Some said he wanted to build a trauma center for young soldiers who were struggling to reintegrate into society, and named it Army Home. But all is still speculation. Jungkook hasn't spoken yet. The military is silent. But analysts say something is being set in motion from within, and Jungkook is the center. The one thing that cannot be erased from Jungkook's identity, no matter how far he goes, is Busan. The port city was not only its cradle, but was the root of all its constancy and inner tension. And when the watch he wore at the military ceremony showed coordinates pointing to a remote area south of Busan, many thought it was just a coincidence. But not with the army, which has been learning to read Jungkook's little cues for more than a decade. The coordinates point to a vacant lot that had become the talk of the town a few years ago. A small former military training base that was closed due to the restructuring of the armed forces. The land lay abandoned for years, but somehow, 2 months before Jungkook was drafted, a small construction company called Golden Road Development bought the entire land for cash. Who owns Golden Road Development? There is no exact data. But when investigative reporters traced its shareholder structure, there was one name that came up behind its parent company, John J.K. And 1 week before Jungkook took the ceremonial stage and received the 3 military awards, heavy equipment began to move in the vacant lot. There have been no announcements, no signs that will be built apartments or shopping centers. But based on a leaked floor plan uploaded by a local construction worker, the building is shaped like the letter A. The savvy army immediately gasped, A4 Army, and in an instant, it all made sense.